Okay, I want to talk about all five of the major prevailing theories here. I know there's a little bit of a buzz this morning that people are like, oh, well, somebody posted something on Reddit, so it's been solved, mystery solved. So I will go over that theory as well on Reddit, and it's very viable. It is a really good theory, and I'll go over all that. But it is just a theory. It's just another person speculating, so nothing's been solved. But it is a really great viable theory, so I definitely want to talk about it here in just a minute. It just occurred to me that there's probably a lot of people going to click on this video that are just hearing about this as the days go on, since there's been a media blackout on it, and it's just now the information coming out about it. So for those people who don't know anything about this mysterious observatory closing, I'll give you just a brief rundown. I'm going to play a minute or two from Paul Bagley and a couple of minutes also from Anita Fuentes, just because Paul actually gives a succinct breakdown of what is going on there. And this was his breaking summary as soon as the news story started to come to light. And then I want to play Anita Fuentes is because there's a clip where she reads directly from a letter from a journalist that is the most up-to-date information that we have on it. And there's no need for me to get on there and read the same exact letter. I'll just play her clip. I always like to use my channel to network and to point people to the other people who do research into these topics and to help knit the body of Christ together. That's part of the calling that God has put on my life, my thesis that there are no mysteries or anomalies, and that I don't have all the answers, but we do have all the answers. So all we have to do is work together, and those puzzle pieces take his puzzle piece, her puzzle piece, my puzzle piece, your puzzle piece, and if we put all of those together, we can see the bigger picture. So I make no apologies for always using clips when I do my videos and stuff, because I believe that is part of my calling, that we need to come together as the body of Christ and all of us work together. It's not about me. It's not all me, 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 me. It's not all copyright, copyright. It's not all about that. This is about the bigger picture. This is about something much bigger than us. So anyway, I'll play his summary real quick, and then I'll play her update real quick, and then I'll get into my video.
What's going on? First of all, let me tell you what's happened, and then let me tell you what they are saying. The observatory, everybody's freaking out over this, and for different reasons, but the circumstances surrounding the sudden closure of that New Mexico observatory last week remains a mystery. The fact that the FBI is now involved and no one's talking has whipped the internet into a froth of theories that span everywhere from aliens to Chinese spies. But the National Solar Observatory's Sunspot facility was closed September 6th due to what authorities said was a security issue, national security issue, and its employees were relocated without any explanation. Matter of fact, the post office there in that area was also closed down. And according to the Otero County Sheriff's Office, which was called to help monitor the evacuation of the people, the FBI has now completely taken over. Matter of fact, folks, one of the folks I talked to who is ex-military and has connections with people that lived in that area, said that the sheriff, after he helped with the evacuation, was told also to leave. We'll take it from here. And so he's been asked to just stay away for a while, so he's not even there, okay? Local law enforcement out of the picture. And he has no idea why he had to evacuate the people, and now he's not even there on the scene. The Association of Universities for Research and Astronomy manages this observatory, which calls itself the premier facility for solar research because of the powerful Dunn Solar Telescope that's there. The facility, tucked among the trees of the Sacramento Mountains, was closed due to security issues. Officials decided to vacate the facility as a precautionary measure. But it was our decision to evacuate the facility. But it's more than that, folks. People have been moved away. They've packed them up and moved them out of there. The post office is closed, no longer needed. Now, there are still folks there, but we're talking Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Okay, I just want to break in here for just a second and let you know that we do know that not all of the people in this town were evacuated, that it was very specific. There were specific people evacuated, not just the employees of the observatory or the employees of the post office, but some people were evacuated and some people were left. So really that makes it more mysterious because it's not some sort of, terrorist gas attack or biological attack or anything like that that has caused the evacuation of this area and these facilities, because some people were allowed to stay in the area. Specific residents were evacuated. So that kind of begs the question, everybody who was evacuated, were they all just evacuated, or were some of them taken into custody? Were there some sort of infiltration, some sort of colony, something going on in this area? And right now it doesn't seem to make sense, because some of the people who were evacuated, there has been news coverage on, and they were like kids, young people and stuff. They were allowed to go back to their houses. So again, it's not that everybody who was taken into custody, but some people were evacuated, some people weren't, some people returned, some people did not.
Residents in nearby Cloudcroft are just as puzzled.
Yeah, new law enforcement went out there recently for some sort of incident regarding the United States government, I guess is what I heard. Like I said, what I know is just rumors that are going around town.
Nothing really happens up here very much, and since nobody knows, it could be almost anything.
13-year-old Montana Peterson says one of his friends who lives near the observatory was evacuated.
He just said there was a bunch of, he said FBI, a lot of law enforcement went up there, and everybody had to get out.
A post office near the observatory has also been closed.
Right now, what we're told is that they've temporarily evacuated the area. So we haven't been told why or when that expires.
And so anyway, look, this is, there's something, they seen something, okay? And typically, I was on the phone, one of my sources said that there were two black helicopters that circled around. Now that's already been reported by several eyewitnesses of black helicopters, but then those helicopters landed. An eyewitness saw 12 FBI agents in black suits with computers before they were removed from the area.
Well, what I'm about to share with you here is one of the best discussions where one of the users called a local news station in Sunspot claiming to be an online journalist. And this is what they were able to retrieve. They said, okay, I just went for the gusto. I called the news station KVIA News 7, which is the outlet that first reported this story, and they were more than willing to speak to me as a writer for Science Monthly Online. The first guy I spoke with gave me the name of the reporter handling the story, and his name is Mauricio Castillas, and he agreed to speak with me right then and there.
And this is him, just to put a face to what she's reading. This is the gentleman, the really only person who has been covering this local. This is locally. He was covering it and he couldn't get any help or any answers or any mainstream coverage. But this is the gentleman she's talking about, not the online journalist. This is the original journalist that started looking into it.
Estella, we know that the FBI is the agency that evacuated the facility, but no one seems to know what exactly is going on.
He told me that he has been up there every day since the helicopters and FBI were spotted. At present, the whole area is cordoned off and no one is allowed anywhere near the place. FBI vehicles are blocking all entry points to the observatory itself, and according to a source of his, no one is allowed to speak to the press. He seemed very perturbed by the notion that something was happening in his jurisdiction and he could get no answers. I asked him if any residents had been evacuated, and he told me that only select ones were, but had no other information on who specifically. I then asked if the residents were just civilians or people that worked at the observatory, and again, he had no information on that. I asked him if the FBI gave him any information as to what was happening, and he said that he has called the FBI multiple times, and they always refer him to the university with questions. When he calls the university to inquire about what is happening, they refer him back to the FBI. He flatly said that this is highly unusual and that he has never been stonewalled like this before. I asked him about the sheriff's office and if they knew what was going on, and he told me that he has spoken to the sheriff multiple times and that the sheriffs assure him that the FBI will not tell him anything either. Mr. Castillo's also told me, though, that he has a friend with another situation out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, that has come to Sunspot to inquire, that he has received calls from all the major networks seeking information. So it appears that people are starting to notice that what's happening over at Sunspot. Now, at the end of the conversation, he told me what followed was off the record, and I agreed. He said that a source within the FBI told him that early this week, there will be a press conference from someone regarding what's happening. I pressed him a bit as to whether this would be just some local press conference or a far larger one. He said only that it would be bigger than just local, but that was all the information he had.
Okay, let's jump right into the prevailing theories and discuss the evidence for and against each of them. All 5 that I'm going to discuss here are worth discussing. But I want to start out, number 1 on my list is the meteor theory, meteor or comet, because one of the Bible prophecies in Revelation that we're expecting to see, because in Revelation 8:8, the Bible prophecy says, then the second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea turned to blood, and a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. So that has been interpreted for a long, long time, that there would be a comet hit the earth, or there would be a meteor, asteroid from the asteroid belt, something like that would impact the earth and hit the sea, land in the sea, and it would cause these tsunamis and all of that. Ephraim Rodriguez is a really famous prophecy in Puerto Rico, where he said he was shown that this asteroid would hit the sea and cause this tsunami, and he is far, far from alone. In fact, if you go over to my channel, my homepage, my channel page, and you go down my playlists down to comets, fireballs, meteors, asteroids hitting Earth. This is a playlist that are all these people from all around the world who have seen the exact same thing, that this impact, this flaming mountain, asteroid, whatever it is, fireballs will hit the Earth and cause massive earthquakes and tsunamis and all of that. He is not the only one who has claimed to have these prophetic glimpses, dreams, visions, that type of thing from the Lord, confirming the vision that John had and recorded in the book of Revelation 8:8. So here's how this links to the observatory, because at the very same time, you can see this article on space.com is dated September 7th, this total secular site. This has nothing to do with religion or anything. But they were talking about this comet, the September 11th comet, and September 10th, really. But those of you who are watchmen, you know that September 11th through the 17th and all of this, September 9th really through the 17th, was a watch date for the Hebrew feasts, the biblical feasts, and that type of thing. So this was mentioned. You'll know about this, the comet. So again, all this is happening at the same time with the observatory mystery. So there it is. This is an actual photograph of this incoming comet, and this is where it would be. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name, but it's 21P, comet 21P, and here's where it would be. The sky map shows the approximate location of comet 21P during its closest approach to Earth on September 10th, 2018. But you can see from the photographs, these photographs were taken from the observatories on August 14th. So they've been watching it from the observatories since before mid-August, well, for decades, obviously, because it has a 7-year orbit. That's odd, huh? 7-year orbit, and it's September 10th, and then it'll be back in 7 years. But the more interesting part about this to me is what's still coming in early October. And again, if you're a watchman, you know about the early October dates, feast dates. Here it says, on the evening of October 8th this year, 2018, October 8th this year, the Earth will intersect the plane of the comet's orbit. We will pass through an unpredictable cloud of particles in the wake of the comet's September passage. While a meteor storm is unlikely, it is possible. We'll have more to say on this in early October. So, odd that the observatories were watching this. Now we have all these observatories offline, not just the one that was seized by the FBI. Several others went down.
that at the same time that this observatory shut down, a number of online webcams also mysteriously went down for a period of time. These webcams and or space cams were the Axis 232D network dome camera in Sydney, Australia, the webcam located at the SOAR or Solar Observatory, the BRT Tenerife telescope in Spain, the webcam located at Mauna Kea Observatory in Hawaii, the webcam of the Canadian-France-Hawaii Telescope Observatory in Hawaii, as well as the webcam at the JAT Observatory in Fairless Hills, Pennsylvania.
Which again, not just the Bible verse in Revelation 8:8, but all of these people, it's not just about the asteroid or the meteor or the comet itself hitting, the big event, but they're talking about fireballs, a meteor shower fireball thing. Just like this space.com talks about passing through then the plane of those particles that follow the comet. We will intersect that in October. So that's the crux of the meteor, comet, asteroid hypothesis, that they are hiding something. They know that this is approaching or that we're going to go through this, and they don't want mass panic, and it's a cover-up. We'll get back to more celestial mechanics theories and CERN and all of that in just a minute, but let's jump to the one that's everybody's kind of jumping on board with right now. This is the one that really gained popularity on Reddit, and it has nothing to do with space or anything at all. This is more about politics and military and war and China and espionage and that sort of thing. Okay, so here's the spying scenario. This is the Sunspot Observatory over here, and you can see how close it is to Holloman Air Force Base and to White Sands missile, our test range. And, you know, when you're talking about an observatory that has, I mean, that's what an observatory is. It has some of the most high-tech equipment for telescopes. These are telescopes to see everything. So is it possible that there was a Chinese infiltration? You know, of course. That sounds actually logical in the art of war. They've hacked all of our banks. You know, we've had all of these different you know, the Chinese hacking us all over the place, and you know, they're into everything. They're all over us like flies on poop. So would they you know, could there be an infiltration there? Yeah, I mean, and that would kind of explain why it was more than just, you know, the observatory itself being shut down, and they had the post office shut down and other things as well. In fact, another thing that makes that theory extremely plausible is that this observatory in question was originally set up to monitor the White Sands test facility. So, and then it was revamped and used as a space observatory, a sunspot observatory. So it's certainly not a crazy conspiracy theory to think that a facility that was designed to watch the White Sands test facility could be infiltrated and then used to watch the White Sands test facility before the enemy. You know, if they're trying to, you know, China's always stealing our secrets, our technology secrets. That's what Chinagate and all of that with the Clintons and all of that was all about. They're always trying to steal our technology and stuff. So, you know, it's a plausible theory, and would certainly go along with the official narrative of this is a national security issue. But if that's not it, then, and this does have something to do with, this observatory did observe something to do with the sun, something to do with space, that now they have this massive cover-up going on, then that's going to kind of stink for the citizens involved in this, because now all the online super sleuths are going to be doxing everybody who worked at the post office and the university students and the, you know, the people from the university that worked at this observatory. But you know, what are you going to do when you have, there is going to be a press conference, from what I understand, early this week. You know, at the beginning of the week, they're supposed to come out and do a press release. But again, that's why we've created this culture of online super sleuths in the truth community. And it stinks to be doxxed. I get it. But that happened. This culture has risen up because we know that the official narrative is always a lie. So even though they're like, well, there's going to be a press conference early in the week, we're like, so what? because every time something happens, like CERN, they're like, oh, a weasel got in there. It's like, okay, whatever. A weasel got in and shut down, the Large Hadron Collider. All right. Or if it's JFK and the magic bullet theory, one bullet pierced people 72 times. It's the official narrative has, we're tired of it. People are tired of being treated like we're stupid. So this is what's going to happen out of this. I guess we'll eventually get to the bottom of it or somewhere close, but all I can do is pass along this information, pass along, I do a lot of research and I study a lot of things, and all I can do is pass along what I have discovered, and it'll all come out in the wash in the end. Time will indeed tell. Then we have the new drone footage. Paul Martinez uploaded the drone footage, and it is indeed a ghost town. Everybody's gone. You don't see anybody. You see two people walking on the walk, which do very much look like they're wearing FBI clothing, or dark jackets or whatever. I don't know if they're guards or, what, but you can see there aren't cars of people at work. There aren't cars and people and anything. And you can see there's the only two people that were detected, and they do, how the FBI has the little white, FBI or whatever on their jackets. It does sort of look like that, but there's no way for us to know who those people are, but they're the only two people detected in the drone footage. I wanted to talk about, don't you think it's weird that they're letting a drone fly around over this? If it is the Chinese theory, if that's the correct one about what was going on, and they're going to close down an entire town and post office and this whole facility here because they think that there might be spying going on from this observatory, and yet the FBI is there and everything, and yet they're letting this drone just fly over this scene like, no, but we didn't notice that, as far as spying goes. Not that this guy should be arrested for flying his drone over or anything, but I'm just saying, if that is the theory, that this whole thing is about spying, it's kind of weird that they would just let this guy fly his drone over the entire area, when they've evacuated it because there might be spying. So anyway, something to think about. But on the other hand, going back to another theory, the UFO alien objects in our skies theory, the observatory being linked to this area and these bases also plays into that, because Holloman Air Force Base is a huge player in a lot of documentaries put out in the UFO truther community and stuff, where they talk about in 1964 contact was made, that an actual craft touched down and the entities came out. These, of course, they call them aliens and stuff in the documentaries, but we know they're the Nephilim, the Raphaim, the hybrids, the humanoid hybrids, demon spawn, that are talked about in Genesis 6, the offspring of their monsters. They're the offspring of the fallen angels and humans, and that's why they're humanoid in shape. And that's why we have so many species associated with the UFO phenomenon, not just reptilians, not just the grays. They're the cryptids. They're what we call the cryptids, the bipedal cryptids. They are the hybrids. They're the Nephilim races. UFO encounters like in Russia, the one famous one where it landed in the public park, is said that 3 9-foot-tall giants stepped out of the craft into clear view. There were like 60 witnesses, police officers, janitors, school children, well documented. And of course, we all know that the giants are recorded as one of the Nephilim races, one of the hybrid races in Genesis 6. There's also the 6 fingers in the Book of Chronicles in the Bible. It talks about the race of Gentiles with the 6 fingers and 6 toes. Very specific. And that is something, again, that we see in the alien autopsy and in different of these bipedal humanoid creatures who are calling themselves aliens. They're demons. They're demon spawn. They're tricking us. But there's tons of other races. People have also reported dogmen encounters, the Anubis, from ancient Egypt, being seen in alien abductions. This dog-headed man-type humanoid cryptid, also related to UFOs. Bigfoot encounters associated with strange lights in the woods, and starting to sound a little bit like Star Wars. You got Chewbacca and you got all these other cryptid races, which we know is all predictive programming, because they are hybrids. They're the Nephilim. They're the Raphaim. So anyway, this is the crux of the third theory, which that something was actually photographed and seen next to the sun, which also gains credibility because this particular observatory was supposed to be a solar observatory. So this is largely based on Gina Marie Colvin Hill's post online where she took photographs and says that she captured something next to the sun, and it went viral through the internet. And again, these pictures of this, it looks like a metallic craft next to the sun, were going viral around the same time that the observatory was closed and all of that. So let's take a look at the pictures. So these are sort of the raw pictures, and you know how when something's moving so fast, you can see that there's like a spiral. Okay, so this is the blown up image, and you can see that it doesn't really look like a planet. You know, it does. It looks like some sort of manufactured craft or something. So I can see where they get that. When you blow it up, it does look like that. You know, also this could be some sort of glare, and these could be objects. Or perhaps it is some sort of metal manufactured object, but it has nothing to do with aliens or anything. Maybe it's part of the lens array or part of the solar simulator that we've talked about. That may be a giant metal object next to the sun, but it might be made by humans. It's just, you know, there's just no way for us to really know. All I can do is present the evidence, what we do have, and let you know why these theories are flying, you know, around society. This is why. This is where the UFO connection comes into the observatory closing. And you have to admit, it sort of looks like the quintessential mothership. The same types of images they broadcast to us in Independence Day and Hollywood movies like that. So anyway, that is the crux of that theory, that it has something to do with UFOs being sighted, or, you know, extraterrestrial life forms or something being sighted from the observatory, and it's the typical UFO cover-up. And tying into that is also this Holloman Air Force Base, because it has a documented UFO history, that not only have UFOs been seen there and landed there, but allegedly there was contact made between Air Force officials and the President of the United States and things like that with these other life forms, some sort of peace treaty in the works there. And, you know, that could also play into the White Sands test base, because who says we still test missiles there? They could be testing these interdimensional technologies, frequency technology, frequency weapons, you know, any of the technologies that we received from this peace treaty with the cryptids, with the quote unquote alien races, interdimensional technologies and that type of stuff. So it could be both. There could be an infiltration at the Sunspot Observatory that was created to keep an eye on the White Sands test range, but maybe they weren't, you know, interested in missile technology. Maybe it has to do with this UFO technologies. Okay, now I want to talk about the one I find the most interesting, and I'm actually going to lump the last two together, and that would be the CERN stuff and, you know, opening the portals and the magnetosphere and the coronal hole in the sun that was spotted right before the observatory shut down, and also the object that eclipsed the sun on several of the instruments. So this is going to be both the Planet X and the CERN section. These are the last two theories. And a lot of the data applies to both of these. So I'm just going to kind of go through these together. Okay, so these are the images in question from the SDO imaging devices. And the controversy around this is that you can see it really fast. It'll happen really fast. But I'll slow it down and we'll look at what we're looking at. Which again, we're talking about, you know, September 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th is when this observatory thing is happening with the FBI. And these images are taken from 9, you can see this is 9/7, and I'll show you some more of this activity through the 9th. So here it's going to come, you're going to see it's going to be really fast. Now, the controversy with this is that this particular satellite does detect lunar transit. So occasionally it will detect the moon, you know, going across. But the The problem that I really have with that, with people who are using that as the excuse to dismiss this, is that all of those videos that I've seen, and some fairly large channels, some really large channels actually, but when they did their sort of debunking of this theory, of this mystery object eclipsing the sun, they only used half of the footage. Like, they intentionally edited out the anomaly so they could say the first half, yeah, it's just the moon, that happens all the time, but that wasn't even the anomaly. So the channels that debunked this, I just find that odd. That, you know, I'll leave it up to you whether it was intentional or unintentional, you know, whether they had ulterior motives or whatever. I don't know. I don't know these people. But what I do know is that they did edit the footage to only show half, which completely cuts out the anomaly that makes the whole thing interesting, which I'll show you right now. Okay, so now I want to play a quick clip from Steve over at WSO. And he's compiled the screen captures from that day to show exactly what I'm talking about, and he talks about the data succinctly.
Check out what's going on SDO. Both 193 angstroms and 171 angstroms both saw an anomaly. Watch it now, really close. See, it goes that way, and then it comes back the other way. Let's just look at it on one here. Goes down and up. So that should not happen. And I have a suspicion that the reason that the Sunspot Observatory was shut down, hopefully only temporarily, was to hide this from the scientific community. But the question would have to be, why are they leaving it up on NASA's site if it's so obvious what's going on? All right, it still could be just a very normal, you know, thing. But I don't think so, because I've never seen the moon eclipse the sun and then come back the other way.
Okay, then Steve put up a part 2, and this is very good. He measured the objects that passed to see if they were the same object. And he says that this, you know, proves that they were two different objects because they turned out being two completely different sizes. You can see how he just laid the circles over them. Then when the second object comes back, he did the same. And then you can see the two objects were two drastically different sizes. And his conclusion was that these were two different objects. And I don't disagree with that. They very well could have been. We part ways on, is this definitive proof? No, it's not definitive proof, because the first thing my mind thought was this was an object in orbit and this was perspective. So when it passed in front of the camera the first time, it was closer to the camera. And when it came back, it was further away from the camera, which to me perfectly fits an orbit. Because we know the moon doesn't go one direction and turn around and go the other. The Earth, if you believe in a spinning Earth, doesn't spin one direction and then stop and spin the other. Satellites, if you believe in satellites, don't orbit in one direction and then just stop and reverse and go the other direction. To me, a logical explanation for something going this way and looking larger and coming back this way and looking smaller would be an object in orbit. To me, that appears to be the logical explanation. Not that it was two objects, but again, it wouldn't be the moon according to the standard model that they teach us, because the moon is going to go completely around the Earth and around and around and around in one direction. But something out there in the space in between, whether it's orbiting, whether this was one object orbiting another, because they say the Nibiru system is actually 7 objects. Both of these are possibilities. It could be 2 objects, moving around some other object that is out of camera range, or it could be one object that is moving around an object that is right in the middle of this space here, that passed the camera the first time close, and then when it came back around, it was further away. Again, if you go to my Extreme Reality Check channel and you scroll all the way down to the bottom to the playlist, I was talking about the comets and fireballs was one event. Right below that, you'll see a playlist called 2 Moons, 2 Suns, Multiple Planets in the Sky. And these are prophetic dreams and visions of the end of the age, where tons of people from all over the world were shown by the Lord these multiple planets, this planetary system. and I don't know if I put mine on here or not, but I myself have had two prophetic glimpses of this from the Lord. And if I didn't put mine in the playlist, they are in my uploads. You can just type in probably Planet X or Planet X Dream Vision or whatever on my uploads search, and they should pop right up. Now, at the very same time that all of this is going on with the observatory and with these other images being captured on other devices, this is September 9th. Blue Kool-Aid captured this on the magnetopause from the NASA satellite system. And you can clearly see that there was a charge built up and there was a magnetic ejection.
And then it starts building and building, and boom, look at that. Now watch. You guys see that? What's it doing? I don't know that we've ever seen this, guys.
Okay, so what we're looking at is the Earth acting as a capacitor. This is precisely what James McCanney was teaching decades ago with plasma physics, and the universities, they like assigned people to shadow him. He was a professor, and they took his classes away. It was censorship old time. He was way ahead of his time. Just search it, James McCanney Science. I think he still has a website. And for decades, he's been teaching the capacitor hypothesis. It's fascinating to see the truther movement like coming around to these same types of conclusions. And he was, trying to teach this decades and decades and decades ago. But anyway, an easy analogy is, a bug zapper, one of those bug zappers you get in your yard. So it acts like a bug zapper. In the center, say the charge is building up, and then when a fly or a mosquito or an insect, flies through that field, zoop, it comes out, it shoots out, it ejects that energy burst. That's the way a capacitor works. But at that time, James McCanney was teaching from a heliocentric standard model. So he was saying that it would be the sun, because this from the heliocentric model, the sun is at the center. From the geocentric, then the Earth is at the center. This graph you're looking at right here of the magnetopause and the magnetosphere and these charges, this is the Earth. So this is the Earth right here at the center. So you are seeing the charge come out from the Earth. Now, James McCanney would have taught that the sun, see this white part, that's the sun facing part from a heliocentric NASA, because this would be a NASA graph. This is how they are interpreting the data. So this white side, this is the sun facing part of the Earth. So James McCanney would have taught the capacitor would be the sun. So if something moved through the field between the sun and the Earth, then the sun would shoot out that energy. And he theorized that that's what causes the hurricanes. So what makes this so strange, it's almost evidence for a geocentric model, because you can see the magnetic charge shot out this way. When the capacitor released, it was releasing toward an object in this direction. Now you can see from the sun facing side of the Earth, the sun is over here. The sun would be right here. Yet the exchange of energy from this capacitor, one, it came out of the Earth. It did not come toward the Earth. The Earth ejected this energy in a different direction. So it appears this would be evidence of an object in this direction. That just, it's logic. This is physics, it's logic, that there is something over here, which, like a bug flying through a bug zapper, came across through that field and the Earth discharged toward it. Which again begs the question, there's some interesting stuff here if you really delve into this. This begs the question, is the Earth a sun? Could we be witnessing the birth of a sun? The birth of a sun. What is a sun? Just because they've told us it's just carbon, it's just hot carbon, doesn't mean that that's true. Look at the eerie similarities that they found when they studied the in vitro fertilization process. This is from Northwestern University. And this shows how an egg, there is a literal flash of light when the egg is fertilized. Just like when the Bible says that when Christ returns, it says that there will be no need of the sun because he will be the light. And then you see our earth emitting a flash of light as Christ approaches. Okay, this is actual footage of an egg being fertilized. You can see they captured the light as the egg was fertilized. There's a flash of light. They call the zinc fireworks. And then when the Bible talks about the Messiah, the Christ, it repeatedly refers to him as the seed that entered the earth. Just like the sperm enters the egg, the seed that enters the earth. Here it is, 1 Corinthians 15:45. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. So it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being, and the last Adam, a life-giving spirit. Could we be watching a resurrection? Could we be part of a resurrection? Could a dead star come back to life and be resurrected? And I know, oh, you're pushing the envelope. No, I'm telling the truth. I'm going deep, but I'm telling the truth. It seems like it's okay to talk about celestial mechanics. It's even okay to talk about celestial objects. But when you say celestial beings, for some reason there's a disconnect on the science side. You know, so science versus religion slides that the CIA built into our heads. The celestial beings on the religious side, people get that. Oh yeah, it's angels, right? They're celestial beings. They're called celestial beings throughout all of the ancient texts, you know. But when I try to correlate that with the celestial quote unquote objects, then the religious people are, oh, you've gone mad, you're a heretic. And on the other side, from the science perspective, they'll talk celestial mechanics and celestial objects. But when I say celestial beings, then they're like, oh no, now you've gone too far. Like, there can't be life forms. They can't actually be life forms. Even though every text left by our ancient ancestors, even from the antediluvian world, the pre-flood world, even the pagan texts, they said the stars were the gods. They said the stars were the celestial beings. Now, our perception is very limited with a 3D perception of an interdimensional object or an interdimensional being. So, you know, what we perceive them in 3 dimensions is not the fullness. You know, we've been taught to view everything from materialism, the galaxies and all of this, but in reality, it's interdimensional. So it would be like taking a 3D object like a cylinder and trying to view it from a 2D reality, a lower set of dimensions. So, you know, if you put a piece of paper, a flat 2D plane through a cylinder, that would be a good analogy. This is what you would see. This would be the cross section. You would think from a 2D perspective, a flat plane, this is all you would see. You would think it was a circle, a flat circle. But in reality, it's a cylinder. There are more dimensions. From 3 dimensions, it'd be viewed as a cylinder, much different than just a flat circle. But if you were viewing it this cross section, if you put the 2-dimensional plane through the same object going this direction, then the cross section would be a rectangle. So from 2 dimensions, you would say, this is a rectangle. I can see it with my own eyes. Science told me it's a rectangle. Yet it's the very same object. When viewed from 2 dimensions this way, it's a circle. I can prove it. Science showed it to me. It's a circle. But what you're doing is you're viewing a 3-dimensional, a multi-dimensional object when you only exist in 2 dimensions. So you can only see the cross-section from wherever you intersect that object. So what we perceive as this orb or this sphere that we call a sun, a star, this circle in the sky, you know, it's an interdimensional object. So we don't really know what it is. Look, this, if you cut across here, this bell-shaped object, if your plane of existence, your 3 dimensions, you know, or this would be a 2-dimensional example, you would think this bell-shaped object was just a circle in the sky. but it really has lots of other shape. This is just where your plane, your 2 dimensions intersect it. Same here. You would say this sphere is just a circle in the sky. So like, here's a good example. This is a cone, you know, intersected with the sheet of paper. It's still, you just see a circle in the sky, right? It's still, you would perceive it from a 2-dimensional plane of existence as a circle. But in reality, that's just the part where the cone intersects these 2 dimensions. In 3 dimensions, it's a cone and a cylinder, which I talk about if you watch my multiverse videos and my interdimensional videos and stuff. I talk in depth about that, how I would refer to this cone as an upside down spinning pyramid, which is also coupled with a right side up spinning pyramid or cone shape, which are the tiers and the hierarchies of both kingdoms of energy. And when they are overlaid on one another, then you get the Star of David. So they retain this knowledge. The mystery schools, the ancient mystery schools, they have retained this knowledge. But the point is that still in the middle, where whether they're a cone or a cylinder or whatever, where they meet in the middle, this portal, this section here is still just perceived as a circle. No matter how complex the object is, no matter how complex the earth is, no matter how complex the sun is, no matter what type, what shape, what kind of interdimensional being, entity, object, celestial being that is, we are still only perceiving the 3 dimensions. So whether you perceive it as a sphere or a circle in the sky, I just want to point out that I believe it is way more than a circle in the sky, folks. So I'm hoping to be able to communicate with some people on both sides who are at this phase in the Great Awakening. It's okay to understand what a sun is, what a star is. It is okay to talk about resurrection. Okay, so this is where CERN comes in with all of the opening of the portals and what they're doing. Is it affecting the sun and this light, this energy that we're detecting coming out of the sun and going back into the sun, looping in, looping out, blowing off, coming toward the earth? We have all of these Bible verses that talks about, you know, Lucifer being cast down to the earth. And we have all these Bible verses that talk about Christ coming to the earth, and that it always being related to the cycles and the seasons of the sun and the moon and all of this type of stuff that we are yet to understand, which we are just now awakening to. That's what the word apocalypse means. A lot of people translate that to be like it's some horrible battle, you know, that Armageddon, the Battle of Armageddon. I think people confuse with the word apocalypse. But that word apocalypse means revealing. It means pulling back the veil, pulling back the curtain, the revealing, the awakening. That's what we are all a part of. So anyway, I wanted to play this news clip about, you know, this black hole in the sun, because this science expert explains how that these aren't images, these aren't pictures of the sun, that these are instruments detecting ultraviolet light and stuff. I like this clip too, because he also gets kind of cornered and replies honestly that they don't know much about the sun, that we just now have these types of, you know, ultraviolet sensors and all of this going, that we can collect data and kind of get an idea of what, but this is very recent.
And they've discovered there's actually an enormous dark hole over our sun. Corey Powell's editor at large, Discover Magazine, here to look at these images. Nice to see you, Corey.
Yeah.
What is this?
Weather map on the sun. You'll notice part of the sun is missing. So this is a picture of the sun in ultraviolet rays. What you're seeing is this is 3.5 million degree plasma erupting from the surface of the sun. This part that's missing, the reason it's dark, is that whole chunk of the sun basically ripped off, blew out, and is coming our way at about 2 million miles an hour.
Our way.
Our way.
That doesn't sound good.
Well, so this is about 80 times as wide as the Earth. If you were looking at the Earth on this scale, it's about that large. So this is an incredible chunk of the sun that's flying out. What happens when it hits our planet? It causes auroras. It wiggles the magnetic field. The thing you really worry about is it can disrupt your GPS. It can mess with your communication satellites. It can mess with your power lines.
Is that like a solar flare?
So yeah. So this is you're actually not seeing the hot gas here because it's no longer on the sun.
It's coming into our face. Did we ever know this before, or did we not Take note of it.
Well, it's really very recent that we've even been able to see these things. And so we kind of knew, there's this constant low-level thing, a few $1 million a year damages, more or less, just our solar satellites, power lines, things. We knew that the sun was messing with us, and we didn't exactly know why. Now you see why. And
So back to the observatory that was closed. The pictures captured right before the Solar Observatory was evacuated and all of these other online cameras and observatories went out at the same time was this solar hole, this coronal hole that was Earth facing right there, like something was coming out of this hole. And it looks like the sun is cracked in half from the images that we see all the time. So I'm not sure what the instruments are actually detecting, and I'm not sure if CERN is playing a part in this. But anyway, when this hole became Earth facing, then that's when everything shut down. That's why this CERN thing and the sun being a portal and all of that comes into the very last theory that I wanted to cover. So I do want to just quickly touch as I wrap this up on a couple of more graphs showing that this magnetic storm that hit the Earth over these last several weeks has been very real. And associated with it, we've had all of the 8.0 earthquakes, the megaquakes. We had Fiji a couple of times. We had New Zealand. We also have had the hurricane. This all plays into James McCanney science and the capacitor and all that. But it is also somehow related to the spiritual. Because if you guys have watched my video, I did a video called The Veil is Thin Right Now. And it may not be up before this one because it's all I usually have several projects in the pipeline. So I don't know if it's not up when this one uploads, then it will be the very next one uploaded. And it's about all of these spiritual experiences and magnetic experiences that have been going on with me over the last several weeks. And they're not all spiritual. Some of them are like keys vibrating in my dad's pocket. Some objects in my house on like my nightstand. It sounds exactly like when your cell phone's on vibrate, and it's laying on a table and you hear that sound, it like that, but there's no cell phone on my nightstand. It's other objects that I have, ink pens, because I keep my journals and stuff there. Yeah, so other objects in my house vibrating. One time my foot and my shoe just the craziest thing. And there are other people reporting the same types of things over the past month or so. And everybody around here had almost no cell phone service for weeks. And obviously not everybody, but lots of people throughout the day I would bump into, and I had no service on my phone. It was in and out of service for weeks. I had no signal. There was a massive interference. And I guess the communications were actually down and being repaired and rebooted. So now I want to show you the ground current graphs and stuff and this aurora borealis effect that we saw.
Steve Wilson with WSO. Just wanted to check in here, and I've been thinking about this magnetic storm and looking at the data that's been kind of pouring out. Where I have you here is at the real-time image gallery from spaceweather.com. And it's the heavy geomagnetic storm that happened the 25th and 26th of August, which also, by the way, knocked out our satellites for a period of time. And now those satellites are back up again. We'll take a look at those images here in a minute. But what I wanted to point out was when we talk about ground current, and this is ground current that was monitored in Norway, according to the story, and there'll be a link below for you to go check that out. But I'm just looking at the graph and the image from the 26th when we were watching closely the geomagnetics, this very same geomagnetic storm. And what they're saying is there was a crack in the magnetosphere whereby energy got below the satellite band and into as far as grounding to the Earth itself. And this is that monitoring during that time, that spike in energy that was caused by this geomagnetic storm. Now, here is the thing I want you to think about, and think about this. So normally, a geomagnetic storm that would, break the satellite band or would, cause the satellites to fits out, to go to overload condition or to fail-safe condition, which is the satellites did. it would normally be energy that was coming from the direction of the sun, which in this picture is to the right. So in this picture, at the time of this incident, there was a huge amount of energy, but it was not coming from the sun. It was coming from somewhere else. It was coming from behind the Earth. So what's interesting about that is getting a geomagnetic storm from the rear side or the dark side, whatever the side that's away from the sun, whatever time that is, and it was coincidentally captured, you know, by the photograph that we saw yesterday, that it actually punched through the magnetosphere, this energy that came in from, not from the sun, but somewhere other than the sun.
And while this data is being recorded by all of these other devices, then people out here in the regular natural world are simultaneously filming the skies with these strange colors and aurora borealis type effects, and cell phones, all of our cell phones stopped. My cell phone stopped working for about 2 weeks. Yeah, the satellites went down and they rebooted and all of that. But
and these are kind of clouds that I'm getting. This is every day, every morning, every night. This is to the east. Every day.
And this is a clip from Mr. MBB333. Again, all links are always down below in the description box if you guys want to go watch these full videos and check all this stuff out. But he has a website too that has sky phenomena on there, and you should also check that out if you're interested in this type of stuff. But this came in a couple of days ago, and it was that pulsating light again. There's a zillion clips of it online, but there's some sort of pulsating light, and it's not lightning, and it's not one spot. It's something different.
Around 11, I think, 11:30 p.m. And the sky was pulsating. Look at that. It's in a community called Lima. Lima, Ohio. This week.